That, of course, is David Portnoy giving the verbal smackdown against Elon Musk, a man who mines cobalt but believes Bitcoin is bad for the environment. Yeah, that actually happened. Don't trust billionaires. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. A lot of very important news to get into today. The term building back better is definitely not what many people expected. But what did you think was going to happen with so many people being kept out of the loop of what actually is happening in this world? And that's why in this video we're going to talk about all the latest events unfolding in Israel and Palestine, the politicizing of the ever-growing and expanding military-industrial complex, and of course the many things in our mainline algorithm-promoted mainline society that are the absolute opposite of what they purport themselves to be. Now, I think it's safe to say some of the most important news to cover right now are, of course, the events unfolding in Israel and Palestine that are, I'll be honest here, very difficult to talk about because of the large number of fake news stories, manipulated information, as of course more people are emotionally invested in this story and their narrative rather than, of course, actually being able to have a conversation about what is actually happening here. Depending on who you talk to, you will hear completely different sides of the story here, and it's really hard to talk about, but we're going to be doing our best here, as of course the conflict has now entered into its 7th day. In Israel, 10 people have been killed in total from the barrage of rockets that are being fired from Gaza. In Palestine, 174 people died, with nearly 1/3 of them being children. As of course, Israel continues a very aggressive bombing campaign of Gaza that even targeted and flattened a building that was housing the Associated Press and other mainstream media organizations. The Israeli government actually called the Associated Press and told its occupants to evacuate the building an hour before the Israeli government launched an airstrike on it. The Israeli government is saying that they were targeting militants in that specific region, while others are saying that this attack was motivated in order to suppress the press. Now, this is a little perplexing since, of course, the civilians in that building, along with the Associated Press, were able to evacuate. They had, quote, sufficient time to do so, and if they did, wouldn't the militants also have sufficient time to leave? Which makes you question the purpose of bombing the building where the majority of the mainstream media press is. Now, the Israelis are also making the arguments that militants are, quote, deliberately being in the, quote, heart of densely populated civilian areas. But again, because of the Israeli military actions, 47 children in Gaza have died. Again, nearly 1/3 of all casualties on the ground, as it looks like this conflict will only get worse from here and continue to escalate. All of this as, of course, the United States heavily backs and supports Israel to the tune of $3.8 billion, which obviously is having an effect here. Again, lots of fake news out there. Be careful who you believe, but I think these events should be a stark reminder for everyone just how common conflict and war are in human history. Which brings us to the next story that we should be paying a lot of attention to, and that is the latest news that a Space Force commander was fired because he said that critical race theory was rooted in Marxism. Comments, of course, that Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lumher made on the podcast that are true. There's nothing not true about that statement. To me, it's more of an observation than the critique here. There's many long, extensive, and documented ties to, of course, the ideas and proponents of Marxism and, of course, critical race theory. So it's not a leap out of the imagination to say this, but the fact that the people who are having these conversations are being purged from the military not only sets a chilling effect within the military, but highlights how a military force is becoming more and more political, which, if you look at history for an example, when this happens, this usually leads to a lot of problems. The military is not political. The fact that it's becoming more and more political should be distressing to a lot of people. In related critical race theory and woke ideology in New York City, an organization that puts on the city's Pride Parade and event just announced that they are banning police from marching in their parade up until at least 2025, so the police officers could acknowledge the harm that they did. The NYPD, by the way, is one of the largest police departments in the world. They have their own NSA, CIA-style secretive units that work internationally all over the world, and yet somehow they decided to not do their job when it came to all the victims and information that they had about individuals like Jeffrey Epstein. The same NYPD that sat on their hands didn't do a gosh darn thing, even though they had witnesses, victims, audio recordings, even mandatory court-appointed bail meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, which they decided to do absolutely nothing about. The same Jeffrey Epstein that allegedly offed himself, whose New Mexico millionaire mansion ranch is still mysteriously changing hands in deeds and is still inaccessible and landlocked from the authorities. Lots of shady real estate business dealings happening right now that have been uncovered by local journalists in New Mexico that has uncovered really mysterious movements, frontmen, fraudulent deeds, and most likely many other powerful people trying to cover their tracks when it comes to all the extensive business ties that they had to Mr. Epstein. Business ties like, of course, Mr. Bill Gates had, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. Another longtime friend of Mr. Epstein is, of course, also Prince Andrew, as many people are still trying to distance themselves from an individual who, according to many accounts, many witnesses, should absolutely be in jail right now. But he's not, since of course he's the Queen's son. This has the latest news coming in that 47 groups have dropped their support for his, quote, charity givings. And yeah, what did you expect? The guy was a part of an international extortion, trafficking, and abuse ring of some of the most vulnerable people in our society, the youngest amongst us. And forget about this man losing association to groups. He literally should be in jail. But of course, talking about these issues like we have been for a very long time, even when the mainstream media was running PR puff pieces about how great Mr. Epstein was, comes at a risk, as of course you know. We were fully demonetized, downranked in the algorithm, had tens of thousands of subscribers purged away from us, and gone through a lot of insane scenarios and situations that are absolutely ridiculous here on this platform. But because of that, we launched a T-shirt store. We just launched a new store that, of course, we can't even show you some of the shirts that we have here. And this has been a great way to get the message out there, to communicate with the people, to show them that you are not alone, that there are people who care, who are paying attention, that are amongst you. And sometimes one of the best and easiest ways to do that is by simply putting on a T-shirt. You choose what you wear every day. You could wear some pointless multinational corporate logo, or you could actually have a message that could spur someone to actually start to critically think. So overall, I'm very happy I was demonetized. The stories that I've been hearing from people who have been wearing these shirts have been absolutely incredible. And if you want to get one of these shirts, you can on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. The website is linked down in the description below. Click on it right now, because just scrolling through some of the things we have will be absolutely amusing for you. We have started building a collection of people who wear these shirts, specifically down below. And if you bought one of these shirts and you have a photo that you want on the wearechange.org website, right now, email info@wearechange.org. Yes, we actually got a new email. We're actually answering emails. I hired someone to help me with this. If you have specifically a picture that you want on the wearechange.org website, right now, send it to info@wearechange.org, and we'll start building and collecting all of them here. And I thank all of you guys for doing that, since it's the easiest and fastest ways to provide some counter narratives, which are absolutely needed in our mainline society, since almost everything we are told is completely backwards. Just like the video that we began with, criticizing a cobalt miner who's worried about Bitcoin carbon emissions, to, of course, the founder of BLM that went on a spree of buying multi-million-dollar luxury properties in predominantly white neighborhoods that now is blasting the, quote, history of the housing market, which she incentivized by her purchases. There's also, of course, Bill Gates that's portrayed as this dorky sweater vest wearing, oh so loving and caring of humanity, Mr. Charity himself, Bill Gates, whose wealth doubled since, of course, he announced that he's going to be giving his money to charity. All of this as he literally finances projects to block out the sun, fights for intellectual property for commonly available medicines, which he refuses to give to the poor, and now is revealed was throwing nude swimming parties with hired women who dance nude professionally. Yes, Bill Gates, according now to the many sources, this guy right here is known as a, quote, womanizing person, and this according to his biographer and some of the accounts that we've been hearing here. And what did you expect? This guy hangs out with Jeffrey Epstein even when his wife asks him not to. Bill Gates also is someone who's telling you that last year's sickness definitely didn't come from a lab leak, as now many scholars, researchers, and scientists are admitting that there's a high chance that this sickness actually did come from a lab leak. Something, of course, that this independent media organizations and others like Zero Hedge were punished for even talking about a few months ago. Now it's becoming mainstream. This, of course, all around a sickness whose numbers have been declining and falling all throughout the United States. Whether it's the cases, hospitalizations, deaths, all of those numbers are going down all throughout the United States. And with it, some of the lockdown, some of the restrictions, and other insane draconian moves by government that now even SNL is making fun of the few people still calling for them, like, of course, Dr. Fauci, who was proclaimed as the patron saint of Purell by SNL after, of course, there was a lot of contradictory statements made by him that contradicted the CDC, that created a lot of confusion. That shows you just how absolutely inadequate the response to this has been from the very beginning. They can't even still, to this point, more than a year after this, get their talking points straight. And yet, they want more money, more power from us. We have to acquiesce to them. We have to bow down to them when they can't even talk straight. It's ridiculous. And many people recognize it, even in places like New York, where thousands of people have decided to celebrate in Washington Square Park and dumping their face masks in an underground celebration that took place where people just said, screw it, we're going to come and celebrate and party. And they did. They left a mess everywhere, including with crack pipes, a bunch of booze. As you see this eager beaver partier here letting off some cognac. There's fire eaters. New York City has its moments, but man, is it absolutely filthy. And am I really happy to not be there right now, personally, for myself speaking. But again, a lot of people are recognizing the ridiculousness. They're lifting a lot of the restrictions, including Costco, Publix, Starbucks, Trader Joe's, and even Walmart, that announced that they are lifting mask mandates for their customers who have taken the shot, who they're not going to be asking if they took the shot or not, since they can. It violates HIPAA rules. And now, even with the mainstream media, even with New Yorkers, even with Walmart specifically ditching the masks, the ridiculousness of it all, we of course have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that has to put herself in the spotlight and announce that she's going to continue to wear the mask, even though she did get the shots, as she says she needs time to adjust to feel comfortable not wearing a mask. Another intellectual and thought leader of this generation, David Hogg, also announced that he's going to continue to wear his mask, mainly not because of the science, not because of the logic, but predominantly because he doesn't want people to think that he's a conservative. As, of course, to David Hogg and AOC, it seems like the virtue signal is a lot more important than, any actual logic or critical thinking. And when I say these people are the thought leaders, I'm not kidding you. They inspire people like this woman that was caught berating a student who even took the shot for not wearing a mask, absolutely verbally abusing him, and of course the fine public school institutions of this country. AOC and David Hogg are also individuals that believe that voter ID is racist, but shot IDs are not, calling for, of course, a medical passport system, which, again, highlights that a lot of these people don't critically think. There's not a lot of logic here. There is a lot of ego, self-centeredness, and an absolute despotic hunger for power over other people. And personally, that's just not for me. If it's not for you, you are at the right channel. By the way, I'm not doing a Luke Uncensored video today. I will be doing a specific one for tomorrow that I'm going to do research for right now. I definitely want to talk about the latest information coming about inflammation and depression. There's a lot of things that, of course, we cannot discuss here on this public platform. All of that will be available on LukeUncensored.com tomorrow. Doing a lot of videos for you guys. I'm working a lot. I'm also on the road a lot. And I thank you. I thank you for this responsibility. I thank you for your time. It means the world to me to be able to talk to you guys, to be able to hear what you think, what's actually going on there. And sincerely, love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.